In this video, I'm going to show you how to restrict who can transition the status of an issue. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel, drop a like if you get value out of this video, and if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, let me know in the comment section below. And if you really truly do want to help support the channel, make sure you drop a like, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and most importantly, share this video with other people in your team, your boss, your coworkers, your Jira admins, anybody else who can benefit from having access to not only this video, but over 350 different Jira videos. Let's jump into today's topic. All right, so here we are in a workflow, and we're really going to start here just to get down to the brass tacks. But before I do that, let me kind of explain a little bit more of the situation. Let me paint a scenario for you. Let's assume that we're in this environment where we want to restrict the transition properties of who can actually make a specific transition. Now, let me be very clear. I am not trying to restrict who can transition statuses. That is a permission inside of Jira, and that's like an all or nothing. That means that there's a permission in Jira that basically prevents users from being able to go from like to do to in progress to done. We're not talking about that in this video. In this video, I am specifically calling out, let's assume that we just want to prevent or we want to dictate which users can go from in progress to done. Let's assume we want to control just that transition alone. We're not trying to control all the other transitions because again, that would be a permission thing. But we do want to restrict, at least for one or two transitions, we want to entrust a certain individual or at least a group of individuals with that responsibility, and only those people can make this transition. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that inside of the workflow. So in order to do that, you're going to want to go to your project's workflow. You will need to be a Jira admin or a site admin in order to be able to do this. And essentially, all we need to do is go into your workflow and find the transition that you're trying to restrict. Now, this is very key because without the transition, this is not going to be possible. And let me show you what I mean by transition. So the transition is this little arrow, whether we're talking about this /all transition or we're talking about a very explicit transition like this back to testing. Let's assume that we want to block, we want to restrict who can make the transition. So let's go to this done one. Let's say that we have this situation, we're in this environment where our developers write their code, it goes over to QA for some testing, but once QA is done, we want to review, we want to audit the changes, we want to audit the validation, and then we want to make a very objective decision to transition that finished item from testing to done. Again, this is just an example. Your workflow is going to vary, but let's just assume that we want to basically have a very good authority be the people that can do the transition. Well, let me show you how to do that. So if we click on the transition going to done, and this is going to be important that you do this for all the transitions that are going into the status you want, because if you don't, then people are going to find loopholes and go around you. And so we want to make sure we either A, only have one transition, or we cover all the transitions so that there aren't any loopholes. But assuming that we just have one transition like here, where we only have one status going into done, okay, so you're going to select that transition and you're going to click on condition. Now, we're not going to be able to do it just yet, so I just want to show you what the options are, and then I'm going to show you how to set it up correctly. So we click on add condition, you're going to see that we then have a bunch of options to do this. Now this right here, this little section down here is really where we want to get into. You'll notice that we have a couple different options. And this is why I wanted to cover your options first, and then I'm going to pick one of those options and then actually run with them. So let me show you what options you have first. So in order to restrict who can do the transition, you just can't have one individual do it, at least not easily. You can if it's the assignee, but that kind of defeats the purpose, right? Because it's very involved to make sure that you always have the right assignee. So this is not a good option for us. But if we keep coming down, and the report, same thing goes with reporter. You just never know who the reporter is going to be. But if you really do want to do this in a controlled environment, we have to look at one of these items down here. So we're going to have a users in any group, users in any project role, users in a custom field, users in a group custom field, or users in a project role. Now, my recommendation, if you want to do this the most secure way or the most robust way that's a little bit more impenetrable, you're going to want to do it in one of two ways. You're going to want to use user is in group, and this means a specific group. You have to call out a very, very explicit and specific group for this. Otherwise, if you pick the any group, then that basically opens it up to anybody because it's any group, and as long as you belong to a group, which everybody is in a group, then it's like a moot point at that point. This is the one you want to pick, users in group. Or the next best option is users in a project role. Because the reason this is a great next option is as a regular Jira user, you're not privileged to the groups. You can't see the groups that people are in. But if you are a Jira project admin, so as long as you can at least see your project settings, you then can add people to that project. And when you add people to that project, you can control which role they're in. So now you can make sure that you can just give it to the administrators of that project, or you can create a new role. Your Jira admin would have to do that, but you can create a role just for this and then give it to very specific people. But you have a little bit more control here than, let's say, any project role, right? Because then, again, it's open to everybody. So for the purpose of this, though, I'm going to select users in group because this is really, truly the best way to do it, because it's the most secure, it's the most restricted way of doing it. Because in order to be able to do this, you can't just add people to a group. You need to coordinate with a Jira administrator or somebody that does have access to create groups, and you want them to create your special group. So we can come over here, we can go to user management. So you can come over here to user management, you can come over to directories, you can go to groups, and now I can create a group for approving. So I can say transition to done group. And when I do that, I can now add people to that group, and then only the people that are in this group, as I add group members, then only they're going to be able to do it. So now I can take that group, refresh this screen over here because it doesn't know that this group exists, come down here to users in a group, click add, and once I click add, I'm going to be able to call out the group that I want. And so in this particular case, I have my transition to done group, then I click add, and once I click add, all I got to do is publish my draft. And once you publish your draft, those changes are going to take effect. So for that transition and that transition only, Jira is going to go, hold up, timeout. Do you belong to that group? If the answer is no, it's going to say, sorry, that transition is not available. If, however, you pass the test and you are indeed in the right group, then the option to transition is going to be available. And that, my friends, is how we restrict the ability of who can or can't transition issues in a workflow and not have to completely remove the transition permission. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure you drop a like. And if you made it this far and you're not subscribed to the channel, that really does break my heart. So smash that subscribe button. And more importantly, make sure you drop any comments, questions, concerns, perspectives, opinions, things that you may have in the comment section below. I'd love to read them and interact with you. And please make sure you share this video with everybody you know, your admins, your bosses, your coworkers. And hopefully this is a problem that you've been having and now you have a solution for it. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.
It's only worth it if you work for it. It's only worth it if you work for it. I won't stop till they hear me now.